We're looking at initially having seen some positive momentum filter through to the markets, a slight pullback right now. How are you reading the markets picture where, of course, we've got to take into consideration that we are at quarter end?
Yes, Alishia, I think that is probably the most important factor weighing on the market today. It is quarter end. It's not only just in our market that some window dressing will be taking place, but we've certainly seen it since yesterday in the US as well, and today also in the Asian markets and even in Europe today. So I think whatever happens today, unless there's a specific story related to the movement of a particular stock, I think one needs to take into consideration that some window dressing is probably at play.
Let's take a look at some of the counters that's stirring and igniting some commentary. We've had Implats trading top of the top 40 today, up just over 2%. Do we read this as a simple recovery story that's come through after being beaten pretty hard on the back of the Zimbabwe indigenization law having been passed?
Yes, I think it is mostly a recovery story for Implats today. It was hit particularly hard, not as much as Aquarius Platinum, of course, but Aquarius not nearly as prominent in our market as Implats is. Implats being one of the biggest platinum miners and a top 40 stock as well, with the biggest exposures to Zimbabwe, and was hit very hard from that point of view. So today, some recovery. The Zim story just slightly off the radar with some other bigger stories breaking today. So some recovery off those very poor performances of the last couple of days for Implats.
Of course, Nerina, there's another positive factor to take into consideration, and I touched on it earlier. Looking at that platinum price, we're seeing some of the industrial players coming back online in terms of production over in Japan.
Yes, I think that would certainly also assist the platinum players. I think the other parts of the market that we also see benefiting, quite interesting to see the Australian dollar, for example, hitting a 29-year high against the US dollar. That on the back of the expectation that a lot of the construction requirement that would come for the rebuilding of Japan following on the earthquake and the tsunami will be sourced from Australia, for example. So, you know, it becomes quite an interesting exercise to see where the benefit of the rebuild post the Japan situation would be coming from. We also then see motor manufacturers in the US, for example, performing particularly well, not only because they will be picking up some of the slack that has been created by the auto manufacturers in Japan halting production for a period of time, but of course the weaker US dollar also assists that export market. So it's interesting to see how the very bad news out of Japan is assisting different sectors and different parts of the economy in some different ways.
Of course, we've been looking at the positives. There are negatives to take into consideration, because aside from what those Zim laws mean for a company like Impala Platinum, locally we've got mining right delays to take into consideration as well, and that keeping investors still very tempered in their approach when looking at these platinum players locally.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Alishia. I think what we're seeing there is a general deterioration of the investor confidence scenario in South Africa. We see it in the mining rights. We had the Minister, Susan Shabangu, who first promised the latest update on the mineral mining rights application, the online process. We were expecting that on the 1st of March. That was then delayed until today, the 31st of March. Only yesterday to be told again that is delayed for another 14 days. Although it's good to get updates of these, it's always a disappointment when there's further delays, and it adds to this general sort of regional problems around the indigenization in Zimbabwe. It adds to the concerns around an investor-unfriendly environment, and I think it is complicated also by news out today, for example, on the Department of Trade and Industry with a free world coating deal with Kensai Paints. So a general sense that maybe government is just a little bit too involved rather than playing an enabling or a facilitating role in business. It might be meddling more than what is good for markets at the moment.
Let's turn it very quickly to the flip side, looking at Pick n Pay at the bottom end when it comes to that performance on the top 40 today, down over 4%, and really a negative reaction coming through on the back of its trading statement that was released today, where full year headline earnings per share are expected to be between 10 and 25% lower.
Yeah, a particularly bad trading statement from Pick n Pay out this morning, and the market is really punishing them for that. It looks to us as though the second half numbers could be down as much as 24% compared to a year ago. And if you look at where this is coming from, it really is across the board in terms of loss of market share, poorly run operations, and their biggest bugbear at the moment is their Australian operations. They are losing money there at the rate of about 100 million rand per annum, and there's no sign of a turnaround strategy there, and this is really hurting because they actually have to fund those cash flow losses from South Africa. This will have a direct impact on their ability to pay a dividend in the second quarter. If you maintain the current dividend cover, you would already see a decline from last year's second half dividend of 130 cents to 100 cents per share. But that would not really be sustainable given the decline in the earnings forecast. So they would probably have to up their dividend cover substantially, or we're going to see a much bigger decline in their dividend. So really a very, very poor outlook for Pick n Pay, and in very stark contrast to the likes of Shoprite, where their expansions across the borders of South Africa have been into Africa, and it served them very, very well. And in Pick n Pay's case, the Australian experience has been largely unfortunate for them.